order. All commissioners are present and accounted for. We'll move into item number 3, which is approval of minutes for March 28, 2023. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Brasted.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jepson. Any additions, subtractions, changes? Yes, Commissioner Schulte.
I'll be abstaining as I was not here and can't testify to the veracity of the minutes.
Very good. No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Abstain.
One abstention. Any opposed? None opposed. So that passes with one abstention. There are no chair's remarks aside. Well, I guess I can just give a little background here. So essentially, we've had the opportunity to meet with Chair Zelli. We've expressed our concerns related to the ineffective operation of the North Star line, maybe, should we say. That is the reduction in service. We've expressed to him that, you know, the number one complaint we've always gotten is that it didn't operate enough, couldn't be depended on. There was a reduction in service, obviously, during the pandemic. There was federal dollars that came in, 90 maybe percent of which went to Metro Transit for light rail and buses, and very little, if any, came to North Star. We then said that that's unacceptable, that we need a share, a proportionate share of that money. They did increase some of it. You all recall that conversation. I think everybody, I believe, was there. Anyways, what we've done in the last 2, maybe 3 years, I'm trying to recall, is we've had a 71.4% reduction in service, and as a result, we reduced our operating payment by 71.4%. In the past years, we've paid $1.9 million. We thought that that was fair and appropriate. This year, there was a motion to not pay anything. That passed. And the purpose for bringing that back to the Regional Rail Authority today is to revisit that, to consider the notion of paying that same percentage for services rendered. The argument is that we are getting some service. We are getting 2 runs in and 2 runs out. And as we can get into whether that, obviously it's not operating well with those runs, but based on that service, it is my belief that we do have a responsibility for at least paying for the service we're receiving. And that's kind of the point of the discussion here under item number 5. So I'll open it up to the board. If there's...
Move approval
Of what?
of that payment.
Dee, what is the actual amount for the record?
The actual amount is 1.9 million is what we've paid in 2020 and in 2021 and 2022. I do, Mr. Chair, want to put out there that this Regional Rail is not the committee that will be approving this. That comes out of Finance Committee. That is where you would approve that grant for 2023 being done. Regional Rail does approve the budget, and we budgeted always at the full ask because that is the amount that's given to us. But the actual operating grant per year is done through the Finance Committee. So the discussion today is to just talk about what we possibly would like to pay.
So we will see.
Motion would be then to have that move to the Finance Committee for consideration.
So the way it works, the Finance Committee will make a decision and discuss that there. If that's approved in the Finance Committee, then it comes onto the County Board for ratification. This would just be a motion to suggest the Finance Committee take this up and consider it for an amount of, it's 1.9 even.
It 1.9 even is what we paid the last couple of years.
So for 1.9 million even, and that's your motion.
That's my motion.
Okay, I will second that for discussion. Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, and I have been consistent in regards to this issue. So, and thank you for fleshing out kind of the history. I believe this is the third year, right, in a row that we would be doing this.
This will be the third.
Yes, okay. So, and again, for me, it's not about necessarily the why. The numbers aren't good. All of the arguments about we need to, change or relook at this, I'm in full support of that. But it's the how that we are doing this by not signing contracts. I think that it is confusing messaging as well. On one hand, you say, Mr. Chair, well, if they would send more rides, then we would pay the contract. And yet we say they're empty trains. That is not recovering as quickly after the pandemic. So let's not waste taxpayer money. So again, we're talking out of both sides of our mouths essentially and not really giving a solid position. I do want to again thank Charlie Zelli for coming in. I believe it was April 10th. That was something that I felt was very important that all 7 of us were able to have a discussion with him. So we were able to do that. Do we really change anything? No, but you know what? That's a start. Prior to that, it had been 1 or 2 commissioners having conversations, and all 7 of us really need to hunker down. From that meeting, my main question was, are we committed to doing this? I mean, like, what is our commitment? And we are essentially quote unquote stuck with this. So for me, if that is the reality of that, we can choose to either lean in to improve things, or we can, keep fighting this and, not pay the amount, not sign contracts and things like that. So I just think we're going about this the wrong way. Also, there's a lot of stakeholders in this. Obviously, Anoka County does have the biggest share for operating. We have 4 of the 5 stations, but there are multiple cities. There are 2 other counties that are involved. So it's not just about Anoka County, and ultimately this serves the public. So I think that we could just be doing a better job at looking for, again, solutions or improvements versus just sort of having this negative no type of response. So again, I'm being very consistent. So you're saying that now this is moving to finance? Because I want to say too, was it in finance committee? There was another presentation and the proposal was kind of a compromise of going to $4 million and increasing the rides, but that was rejected as well. Am I?
Yeah, Commissioner, let me just straighten that. So
Thank
it
you.
did come before Finance. Ed Petrie from Met Transit gave his discussion and his kind of overview
Yeah.
of what the ask was. That ask for 2023 is about 4.8 million.
Yep.
As of right now, we are running 2 and 2. And special events. It is not increased to 4 and 4. That is what they're budgeting for, but that is not what we're running. If they increase to 4 and 4, it takes at least a 60-day notice for BNSF to allow us to do that. So we'd be looking at July for that to happen. At that meeting, Ed asked for the 4.8 million, and we declined. Last year, and I just want to come back to that number, it's actually 1.957796 is the actual dollar
Thank you.
amount. I just want to get that out there. We can have more discussions on there. We can talk with our legal, there could be a legal strategy, but that is not a discussion I think we need to have here today.
Okay, I got Commissioner Gamache, then Jepson, then Reinhardt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the frustrating things, I think, was that we were told that there was going to be a study done, and the study that returned, that they did do, was maybe interesting, but it doesn't really set any goals for the Met Transit or Met Council as to how the train is going to expand ridership. And they didn't really seem to conduct any kind of surveys of anything like the Minneapolis business groups and things like that to find out what's happening in Minneapolis. Interesting, the public comment that was just made about how someone there took the train every day and, now it's no longer running, but since COVID, he's been at home. And that's the nature of what's happening right now. And it's not really gonna change. And I also noticed while we were at the Transportation Committee meeting last week, one of the things in the bill was regarding the Met Council having a study done. I think they're up to 2024, 2025 now, that the study's not going to be conducted still, or something to that effect. Did you have a?
Commissioner Gamache, can I just, so the ask last, for the study was that Met Transit do a study. They have done the study.
Right.
They have met their goal. I'm not sure if anything will come out of the study, but they basically have met their goal, which was they were asked to go out and do a study. They have done that. That check mark has been done. That's where we're at right now.
Yeah, and I wasn't really sure why there was another thing in the bill dating it 2024, 2025, unless they wanted, somebody else wanted another study, or they read the first study and said, that's not good enough, do another one. But the issue here is that they know right now that they can't run 4 trains. There's not enough people to be on the trains. You could stagger the group that's going, and maybe some of them would pick up a train ride a little later in the morning or later in the afternoon, whatever. And they don't want to do the special trains for events because, well, I don't know why. They don't want to pay for it. So it does become a little bit of a problem as to how we try to budget this and make the determination of how much money do we continue to spend on a train that really now is not the train it was in 2019. There's not the ridership. The ridership's not going to be there for I don't know how long. Most companies are not returning to full staff. Many of the buildings in downtown Minneapolis are being changed over to residential from being commercial buildings, just because of the fact that it's hard to tell how many people are actually going to come back to work. So I don't know where we go with this, and it doesn't seem to be that the Met Council has any answers because Chair Zelli didn't really have any answers as to where they're gonna go with this. He kind of pushed it off, I thought, a little bit to the transit side of the business, which I might have done too if I was in his position, because he probably doesn't really know exactly what the transit part of the business is gonna be. So it's confusing, yeah, and it's a shame because it was starting to work at one point in time, but the COVID pandemic has changed things, and it may have changed things for decades. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Jepson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I am in support of moving this topic to the Finance Committee and in support of the 1.957796 amount. From my understanding, that's what we're getting. So that's what we need to pay, and I totally understand that. Yes, to Commissioner Meisner's point, having Chair Zelli come in was incredibly informative for someone who is new to this conversation. And it was very, very clear to me that they're not going to change. Because they don't need to. This is, to me, is a David and Goliath situation, and they're going to bill us what they want to bill us and provide us the services that they want to provide us. And if it's less than what we are willing to pay, they don't care. I mean, that's the attitude that I got from him. So I also find it commendable that you want to improve the situation. And I think we're coming from a perspective of we want to work with them on this, but it doesn't matter what we want because they're not gonna. So the conversation is moot. I mean, there's no point. So just wanted to get those comments out, and we'll support bringing it to finance.
Okay, Commissioner Reinert.
Yeah, I guess just comments on ridership. You know, the more runs that they add, the worse their stats get, so they won't be adding any, because now it's all about them protecting, you know, their position. But yeah, what do? We pay for the service that we get. I also wanted to thank Chairman Zelli to come out and tell us that an operation that cost $18 million a year and has revenues of only $500,000. It was interesting for that unelected bureaucrat to say, "I don't care."
Commissioner Schulte.
And Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to call the question.
Okay. All right. There's a motion to call a question. We will vote on that. There's no discussion. All those in favor of calling a question signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Okay, so before us is a vote to forward this on to Finance Committee to vote on it and deliberate as to whether they'll send a recommendation to the county board,
Thank you.
which is the same body. There's a motion and a second. Motion by Commissioner Reiner, second by myself. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. And unless there's anything else to come before our Regional Rail Authority, we will stand adjourned. Thank you.